Just before we start, guys, we'd like to start by apologising for absolutely nothing. Ahead of this coming weekend, July the 11th fight between the notorious Conor McGregor and Daniel Poirier.
I want to tell you about the perfect lawnmower trimmer 3.0. Perfect for any occasion, waterproof, and it gets you away from the nips and tucks of cutting yourself as well. Plus, for a limited time, we've got 2 free gifts that you can get. A travel bag, which is absolutely fantastic, and a high-maintenance, anti-chafing Manscaped boxers.
What you got to do? You got to do that.
Tell me more, Pri.
You can get 20% off and free shipping when you use our code SMGT. All you've got to do is use our code SMGT. Let's be having New England.
Get yourself ready. Get yourself ready for the main event. That was so cringe.
Feel it coming on. I waited for so long. Feel it come my way. Each and every day. By the time I put on my shoes.
Good morning, guys. Welcome to Saturday morning G&T. Huge week, big England game to look forward to. As always, I'm joined by Pri, Turk. This week we've got Moh as well. How we doing, Moh?
Yeah, I'm all good, man. Looking forward to getting stuck into a few juicy topics with you boys.
There's a few to cover by the sounds of it. Let's get started, mate. How you been? You all right?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Just been manically busy in life. Work is just too busy right now. I've got a 4-month-old boy who's decided to start waking up during the night before he was sleeping perfectly. Too much going on at once. I've even got the local parish councillor who tried to run me over yesterday. That's another story for another time. But my life is mad right now. So, yeah, a lot going on.
Yes, I've got a, 6-month-old as well. So I feel your pain, mate. I feel your pain at the minute. How are you doing, guys? You had a good weekend?
All good, mate. I'm still kind of recovering a bit from Tuesday night, to be honest with you. Well, Tuesday day and night. But overall, good win, and look forward to
win tonight.
Yeah.
Another win. Before we get onto that, Moh, we want to touch upon a few bits about you. We've been neglecting the Arsenal, if I'm honest with you. I'm a big Tottenham fan. Pri's a big Tottenham fan. Turk's a West Ham fan. We barely ever touch upon your side. How do you think it's been going, mate?
Well, listen, you might not talk about them, but we all know you're thinking about the mighty Arsenal every moment of every single day. But yeah, listen, with Arsenal, do you know what? I feel like the mood in the fan base is you obviously forget, when you get to the season break, right, the summer, you forget necessarily what might have happened, the little details that bugged you and everything. So Arsenal fans aren't raging right now like we have been at times in the last season, but I'm not getting that sense of real excitement and expectation from the Arsenal fan base in general, because I think a lot of us are very unclear on what Mikel Arteta represents. Does he represent a blip, in terms of Arsenal's performances and inconsistency and something that he's trying but it's not working? Or does he represent actually, a long-term vision and a future with him as manager? I think you'll struggle to find an Arsenal fan that will put his name on one of those two sort of conclusions and say with absolute certainty, yeah, this is definitely what I expect.
I think that's fair enough, really. I think that's the same with most London clubs, apart from West Ham at the minute. You're loving life, aren't you?
I think Chelsea quite happy, mate. It's won the Champions League. One of the most successful London clubs this season.
Good point.
Just going back to Glenn's comment earlier, I think we've been so used to talking about Arsenal over the last 15, 20 years, if you like, going back to the successful Arsenal team. You can quite easily, if you like, or this new era, quite easily forget how successful they were back then. So I think for us, it's not that we've kind of ignored that. I think it's just that other London clubs at the moment have I'm not going to use the word caught up because I don't think that's necessarily it, but there is a little bit more of a level playing field in certain aspects. So I think that's why the likes of West Ham are being mentioned a bit more, and maybe Spurs for the wrong reasons at the moment. But as an Arsenal fan, you mentioned as a general your fan base. You personally, is Mikel Arteta the right man for the job, or was you initially wanted him out, or what's your thoughts on that?
Well, listen, I'd always, for me, I've got very, very clear criteria with when Arsenal are, pursuing a new manager. When there's an appointment to be made, I've got very clear criteria. And I guess this will probably overlap nicely into Tottenham's new managerial appointment. But for me, I want a manager who, above all else, is someone who's got a track record of winning. I obviously can appreciate that you can get managers out there that don't have a track record of winning that can be brilliant, because Arsene Wenger was one of them. He came and absolutely changed the fortunes of the club. And it's off the back of his track record, even though the last stint of his managerial career at Arsenal wasn't what we wanted, but it's off the back of the work that he did that we have this level of expectation at Arsenal now. And even in our bad years, we still managed to churn out FA Cups and that sort of thing. And that is down to the work that Arsene Wenger did. But when we signed Mikel Arteta, he failed at that first hurdle for me. That not only does he not have a track record of winning, but he has no track record whatsoever. So effectively, what you're saying is come and do your work experience in one of the biggest jobs in football. Arsenal are top 10 European club, top 20 European club, whatever you want to say. We're one of the biggest clubs in Europe, one of the biggest clubs in the world. And, we've got a rookie in the managerial hot seat. And I think this season, what you saw is that he has got a lot to learn. He really does. I think in terms of man management, especially, he's got a lot to learn. And on that basis, I was never thrilled with him, taking the job, because I always try and look at a conversation in totality. I don't like to just have half a conversation. I feel like people do that with managers a lot. People just say so-and-so out, and that's the extent of their thinking. And it's a case of, right, well, what happens next? There's got to be a new appointment. You've got to look at who else is on the market at that time to decide whether it's actually the right thing to do. And when I look at when Arteta was available, so was Allegri. And I cannot understand for the life of me why you'd opt for Arteta over Allegri. And clearly people might say, well, you don't know, Arsenal might have tried to go and get Allegri. Fair enough. But on face value, when I'm looking at it, I'm thinking to myself, there's much better people available out there on the market than Mikel Arteta. And for me, he's been far from convincing.
But do the other people fit the agenda of the board? And that, like you said, that brings us on to what Tottenham in a little while. But, I think with the ownership of both clubs at the moment, I think you have a very specific role they need to do, the managers, rather than actually manage the club. They are no more than head coaches now, and they're just meant to fulfill certain elements of what their role is. And I think for Mikel, it papered over quite a lot of the cracks when he won the FA Cup in his first season, which was a fantastic achievement, again, for somebody who's a rookie manager, like you said, Mo. No one expected them to beat, who did they beat? Man City and Chelsea in those back-to-back games. But then your boy, Pierre, he came through, innit? He came through with those two games and got you through those games. But again, I don't know.
Well, look, it's really interesting, right, that you say about the head coach dynamic, because there is the feeling that when you have owners of a club that don't truly care about winning trophies, don't truly care about really, really what goes on the pitch, they want a head coach, someone just come in, get on the training pitch, figure out your tactics and your drills and all that, and then that's it. But Mikel Arteta was promoted from the title of head coach to the title of manager in September 2020. And when that happened, I was quite surprised because, as a manager, you feel like they're going to have more influence in other matters, even off the pitch. So, for example, a head coach will have players bought for him in many occasions, won't have any say on contract negotiations and the finances, but a manager has got the ability to get involved with things like that. So I found it quite interesting, but I do appreciate that it could be a dynamic where the Cronkies want to employ someone who will not be holding them to account and will be happy to work on, let's say, a shoestring budget, for example. When you get someone like Allegri coming in to a team, he's likely going to be saying, look at my footballing CV. I do not accept a period of mediocrity on here. Look at how much he's achieved. Why would you want a few years of achieving nothing? And it goes back to what you were saying, Turk. You were saying that, maybe it's a bit more of a level playing field, and you're being very polite with everything that you're saying. The reality is, people always talk about the top six. Yeah, that's kind of the sexiest part of football, the sexiest part of the Premier League. Arsenal finished 8th. The season before that, we finished mid-table. I think Arsenal fans do actually need to accept that as it stands, we're a mid-table team, and why would anyone really be talking about us? If you win a trophy, that's different. What did we win this year? What did we even come close to winning this year?
I think the best way to describe you guys at the minute is you are a top 4 club with a mid-table team. I think that's kind of the way to explain it a little bit, mate. Talking about you, how did you get into Arsenal, and how did you become an Arsenal fan, and what are your kind of first memories of supporting Arsenal?
For a lot of British Asians like me, I don't know if you'll be able to relate, Priyesh, but my dad moved to the country. He didn't grow up on English football. He grew up in Pakistani cricket, if anything. So when I came, to the stage where I was aware of football and started getting into it, I didn't have like a big influence at home. Yeah. So it happened quite naturally for me. And I think Ian Wright was the first player to just capture my imagination. I just thought he was I still do. He's the coolest bloke on the planet. He's just, no matter who you support, you often get fans from any club that just say, do you know what, Wrighty's a bit of a legend. Everyone kind of seems to like Wrighty. You guys might feel different.
No, Wrighty's a dude, man. Wrighty's a proper dude.
When he came to West Ham, I was over the moon. He was only with us for just under 2 years, year and a half, I think he was. But he was one of the first players that I started getting on the back of my shirt again, because I went through an age of always getting players and they left. Yeah. Then when you find Ian Wright, I was like, I've got to get Ian Wright. And I remember getting 14 and Wright on the back. But you're very right. He's
But we talked about exactly what Mo talks about now with Anthony Costa when we had him on the show last time. And, we discussed how he had no choice but to go into a Tottenham family. Like, I support Tottenham, I'm a sports Arsenal, because we never had any guidance from above. We were down to choosing our own thing.
Do you think it's more personalities and moments that influence you to support a team than when you're younger, rather than?
Of course it is. Yeah. It could be anything. It could be a clip on the TV that you watch that just stays in your mind, or it could be a kit that you're watching that looks like this.
And players. And players. I think players are a big one. Yeah. What always amazes me, right, is that because of the Invincibles generation, you had a lot of people at that time who were young at that time who loved Arsenal. Yeah. And now a lot of those people are actually professional footballers. So you see really, really talented professionals, really highly sought after professionals talking about how much they like Arsenal. And you just think to yourself, people that weren't there for the Invincibles, that are young now, that are kind of like, early teens or whatever, they're kind of like, why the hell does this absolute baller like Arsenal? They can't understand it because they think Arsenal are crap. And it's like, well, what you don't realise is that they grew up dining on top level football in that Arsenal era. But you see, if Arsenal don't fix up soon, we're going to miss out on having that level of attraction for players, because no one's looking at Arsenal now and falling in love with them and thinking, I'd love to play for them. I want to wear that number that this player wore. People look at that. Look at Bergkamp and Henry, Perez, Ljungberg, Vieira, and think, I want to play for the club they played for. No one's looking at, Lacazette right now. Or
that's the point, isn't it, really? When you think about it, I used to, as a Tottenham fan, I used to fear playing those teams. I used to fear playing against, strip it back, Bergkamp. I used to fear playing against Ian Wright. I used to fear playing against Petit, Vieira, that sort of 98 team. And then again, in the early 2000s, I used to dread the North London derbies. We had Robbie Keane up front, and that was about it, really, wasn't it, for a period of time? But now, you kind of look forward to it. You've got players in that Tottenham team that thrive on playing against Arsenal. There is the odd on occasion that there is a bounce back from the Arsenal team, but it must be tough from what you've been brought up with that.
Oh,
with
of course,
those Arsenal teams.
Absolutely, yeah. But, going back to your original question, so Ian Wright was my kind of first thing that I think got me into football. And it's hard for me to remember my earliest footballing memory. But what I do remember in 1993, so I was 9 years old, I just remember desperately wanting Arsenal to beat Sheffield Wednesday. And that season, we played Sheffield Wednesday in the FA Cup and what probably was the Coca-Cola Cup. I always refer to it as the League Cup.
Yeah.
So I remember being desperate for us to beat them in the finals. But then what that tells me is that if at that point I was desperate, at what point did I first get into it? And I'd love to be able to be a fly on the wall of my own life and see where it first happened. But I remember that. And then I remember, after that, just being absolutely obsessed with Arsenal. And my first game was in '97 when I was 13. Went up to London on the train with my mum. She waited outside the ground for me. So you got to rate my mum for that. I had a junior gunners ticket that I've got framed and signed by Ian Wright. £8 it cost me. And that was the game in which Ian Wright broke the goal scoring record for Arsenal against Bolton Wanderers, 4-1, scored a hat-trick. So for me, in the run-up to that game, I loved Ian Wright. I just knew that destiny was planning all of that for me. I knew he was going to break the record. And then I've got that ticket signed, the program signed. For me, that's up in pride of place in my home. And yeah, that's kind of like my early memory of football.
Yeah.
Well, Mo, there is a little elephant in the room. You was on AFTV, quite notably on AFTV for a substantial period of time.
Because the first game was against Villa when we lost 3-1 at home after signing no one all summer. And yeah, I think that was around 2013, 2014. Yeah.
How did all that come about, mate? And did you know what you was embarking on at that stage? Because obviously it's massive. I watched the AFTV videos as a Tottenham fan, obviously only when Arsenal lose because I like the reactions from that. But how did all that come about?
Well, do you know what? I think a lot of people have heard before a lot about AFTV, but I'll touch on kind of a different way of looking at it today, right? But it all came about very naturally. When I went on AFTV, I did not know who Robbie was. I had never heard of AFTV. All I was doing was, instead of getting in touch with the missus and my mates and complaining about Arsenal on the way home, just calling people up and being like, "Oh, what did you think of the game?" Whatever. I saw these guys with a camera, two other people talking to them, and I thought, I want to vent. I was really, really annoyed. I think this was a Suarez summer when Arsenal were interested in him, and we've gone and got battered at home. And
Is that the day? Is that the summer?
Yeah, the 40 million plus £1.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I just wanted to. Everyone knows I love talking about football, and I've got a lot to say. So I wanted to speak, and that's how I got involved. Obviously, that interview went viral, and people really seemed to like it. So then that's how I started talking to Robbie, and that's how I started getting involved more regularly. But the fact of the matter is, there's a really, really important distinction with the way I got involved versus how people get involved today, and a lot of people got involved subsequently to me. I got involved purely on the basis that AFT was actually set up. It was to talk about, or to Arsenal fans to talk about Arsenal. What AFTV has become now is, not everyone, but a lot of people, they make a beeline for AFTV. I went to the game to watch Arsenal when I happened to talk to AFTV. Now people go to an Arsenal game to watch Arsenal and to talk to AFTV because they know it will give them a platform. It's a shortcut to some sort of notoriety, shortcut to some exposure or building their own platform. And it's quite evident to see a lot of people have gone on and they've acted in a certain way, or they've pulled off what you could describe as a bit of a stunt, whether, just doing something that they hope will go viral, that will get shared loads and stuff. And I just think to myself, well, that's not really what it's about. You're meant to go just at face value, just because you want to talk about Arsenal. Unfortunately, it's taken a different guise now, where I feel like it's lost some of its purity.
Yeah, I mean, we at West Ham, we've got a number of people that do something very similar, but I genuinely believe it might just be because we've had a decent season. But prior to that, it was used as a way of ranting about the manager or the board or whatever. But it seems to have united a lot of the different views of the fans now. And even though we had, for us, a very successful season, you've still got fans that are protesting on a weak direction of the club. And I think a platform like that, as Arsenal TV and others, are a good way of fans connecting with other like-minded people. But I think you're right. I think towards the end, what was happening, it's just my opinion on this, I think they were actually half wanting Arsenal to maybe not do so well to be able to generate more likes and more comments and more of a platform. Would you say I may be right with that, or would you say that?
You know what? If anyone has ever watched me over the last kind of like 7 years I've been doing AFTV, I think the one thing people really know about me is that I do try and call it fairly, whether no matter what I might be feeling about someone, whether it's a player, manager, whatever, I do try and be fair. And clearly I'm not Robbie's biggest fan after what took place for me and him, but I would say that he never wants Arsenal to lose. AFTV as a business model, it's big enough now to survive without defeats, right? So they don't rely on defeats, but just absolutely statistically, just the numbers don't lie. Just factually, yes, they get more views after defeats. And that's even the case with someone like myself, who doesn't necessarily rant and rave. So, Glenn, you mentioned that you watch Arsenal Fan TV when Arsenal lose. Would you seek out my videos when they lose, or would you go and seek out some other people?
Yes, if I'm bluntly honest, it generally is the more hot-headed, loose-lipped characters on it that I do look for. When I look at, I've recently watched a topical video that is with you with Granit Xhaka reacted to the crowd when Granit Xhaka was booed off the pitch. Now, I hadn't seen that previously, but when it actually happened at the time, I wasn't seeking you. I was looking for the more venomous sort of anger towards Granit Xhaka. Just a minute, and we're going to relive that moment. I want to hear your thoughts on it, mate, if I'm honest with you, in the comments.
So I can see you booing there, mate.
So obviously, Xhaka's a real buzz topic at the minute because of such a good tournament he's had.
Like, mate, against France, that was his twin brother, not the guy that's been playing for Arsenal.
Yeah,
it was.
He's
done the blonde hair and he's turned into a different guy.
But that obviously is it lives in the memory of a player, 100%. There's no way of a player forgetting that treatment. Do you think that AFTV can have the power of stirring that sort of thing up?
I think it'd be fair to say that AFTV definitely contribute to the feeling because of how big AFTV is now. If I'm not mistaken, I think they've got more subscribers on YouTube than the official Arsenal channel. So it's not small fry. And I think because of that size that they have and how well known and watched they are, they do have the ability to influence opinion on players. Clearly, people have got their own agency, though. They can decide for themselves how they want to act around a player. But yes, AFTV do feed into that conversation materially. But on that Xhaka thing, right? I just feel like he had a lot to answer for, but the fans also had a lot to answer for. Ultimately, though, we're not the ones on the payroll. We're not the ones that have to we're not professionals. That word is lost when it comes to footballers, right? When you have professionals, like I'm a professional in the field of finance. If I do something to antagonize my stakeholders, that's unacceptable. What Granit Xhaka did as a professional, literal definition of the term, was unacceptable. And I do find it weird and surprising that he was able to make a comeback in the way that he has. I personally would be quite happy to see Granit Xhaka move on because he's playing in the Euros and people are seeing the same player, but what they're not appreciating is that it's a very different style of football in the Euros. And I think he will be phenomenal in Italy. So I think if he does go to Roma, people will constantly be saying to Arsenal, "Oh, look at that, he's made team of the season. Oh, look at that, he's been brilliant." And I won't really lose any sleep over it because I think Italy will suit his game brilliantly. When I first saw Granit Xhaka and I saw his range of passing, and this was the first time I saw him, I thought, yes, there's something about this guy. But, when you watch him for the first time, you don't have enough moments to appreciate their weaknesses. So I looked at what he did do the first time I saw him, rather than being able to look at what he doesn't do. And on balance, Arsenal if we get Locatelli, if we get Yves Bissouma, we are going to be a better team as a result. So I'm happy to see Granit Xhaka move on. I wish him all the best. I think what happened that day between him and also the fans was unacceptable. But as you say, people don't forget, and I think it's best if we all move on.
Do you think, Mo, not having fans in the stadiums this year has helped his cause? Because obviously no one's been able to get on his back regardless of your results. I think Arsenal had a bit of an up and down season, but finished strong enough. Nearly even pipped Spurs, obviously, on the final day of the season, but didn't. Just moving in nicely into the new season, what are your hopes for Arsenal this year, and what will be the type of signing that is going to excite you as a fan?
Well, look, in terms of hopes for the season, right, my hopes never change. I think it's very easy in any organisation to become noseblind to a drop in the level of expectation. The culture, the prevailing culture at any time in an organisation can have a massive impact on people. And when it comes to Arsenal, I always say I'm not going to lower my expectations in terms of what Arsenal should be achieving every season. Top 4 and a trophy is my minimum expectation. Absolutely minimum expectation. Arsenal should never be going into any season with the acceptance that not winning a trophy is acceptable. Champions League qualification in modern day football is very important. So those are my hopes for the season, but I do not think we'll achieve them because, as I say, I'm not convinced by the manager. And in terms of signings that would really excite me, it's a difficult one because you obviously have to complete that whole conversation. Arsenal took out a Bank of England loan during coronavirus of over 100 million. Now, it's hard to go from making 50 people redundant at the start of last season to all of a sudden saying, I want to go and get Jack Grealish. That don't really marry up if you're trying to be sensible about it. But what I would like to see is enough outgoings and some really sensible incomings. If we do get rid of Granit Xhaka, for example, the rumoured fees of Bissouma or Locatelli, I don't think it's out of this world, and I think will massively improve the team. There's other players like Lokonga we've been talking about, not a household name by any stretch, but someone who, by all accounts, is a really, really good prospect and going to improve the team. I don't expect Arsenal to make a big marquee signing this year, so I'm not actually holding out for exciting signings. I'm just holding out for the right signings.
Yeah, I mean, how do you think? What's your thoughts in regards to your wonder boy outshining Jadon Sancho on the bench for England, while Saka's running rings around players at the Euros? How do you think his value's increased over this period?
Yeah, I mean, the guy's a gem. He really is, and again, one of those players where it's hard not to like him. I'll be fair, and I'll give you a Tottenham example. Ledley King. No one really had a reason to dislike Ledley King. Even as an Arsenal fan, he just seemed like a decent bloke. Seemed right. Eric Lamela, on the other hand, very easy to hate. And my point is, with Bukayo Saka, who doesn't like the kid? He just seems like the most popular guy in the camp at England. A really, really solid worker, good footballer. I love him, and his value's sky high. But I don't ever want to find out what his value is. I just want to stay at Arsenal.
Good point. Good point.
Do you think? I mean, back in the day, I'm going back again. Arsenal would only really lose a player if Wenger didn't want them or they weren't good enough. You'd very rarely get a bigger club come in and take them off of Arsenal because Arsenal were so prolific. But now, Arsenal don't fall into that bracket, and unless you're going to be finishing the top 4 regularly and winning trophies, someone like Saka is going to attract attention, and that's the face value of it. I mean, I've been used to that at West Ham ever since. Every time we've had any decent players, they've always been nabbed by the bigger and better teams. Do you think that with the likes of Saka and maybe 1 or 2 others?
In response to that, I feel like I've spent all my life convincing myself that, this player won't leave, this player loves the club. I only expect that now of players that grow up supporting Arsenal. So that's generally your English players, yeah? And even then, when I say expect it, it doesn't surprise me if they do an Ashley Cole and leave for an extra £5 a week. But otherwise, I don't even entertain it. I've done that with Henry, Vieira, Van Persie. I'm tired of that. The fact is, with Bukayo Saka, this might be a bit controversial, right? Let me know, guys, if you guys agree. This is my theory. You get destination clubs, and then you get other clubs. Very broad buckets here. And when I talk about destination club, these are clubs where a player wants to get to. They spend their entire careers saying that is the destination I want to arrive at. For me, there are only 3 destination clubs in world football: Barcelona, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich. There is not a single destination club in England. In England, I mean, you could say Man City under Pep Guardiola is somewhat a destination club. People want to play for that club, but that's dependent on the manager. Liverpool, Jurgen Klopp, again, it's only because of Jurgen Klopp. Man United, they're not a destination club. If you look at the fact they haven't won a trophy in so many years, they're not the same Man United that they used to be. So I don't believe them to be a true destination club. At one point in time, they were. At one point in time, Arsenal were. But with our failure to win the Champions League and to build on what we had and create a real legacy, we missed that opportunity to try and cement ourselves as somewhat of a destination club. So I don't think in the Premier League, when Bayern, Barca or Real come knocking, players say no. You look at Hazard, he's moved. You look at even, for example, let's say any United player, who do you think is saying, I don't want to leave for Real Madrid right now?
Mo, but you say that, mate, and the whole demographic due to the pandemic has changed, hasn't it? Especially with those 2 Spanish clubs, mate.
Absolutely, yeah.
You've got Barcelona shopping in the free transfer market exclusively. And even then, they're not able to attract their first choice targets. Like with Gini Wijnaldum, they wanted him as their first choice. And, he got scuppered by the money bags at PSG to go and grab him, So I think that demographic's changing. I think overall, with obviously my background within the, in football, etc., on the agency side of things, you see that overall, when you're talking about destination clubs, Premier League is the destination league.
Absolutely. Yeah? Absolutely.
When we sat down with a player with Newcastle, at the end, that was at PSG, a younger player at Newcastle. I think we've gone over this before on the show, but just to disclose this with you, Mo, at the end of the presentation, we had like an hour and a half presentation in Paris with the player and his family, and the sport director of Newcastle. We had the manager on the FaceTime and stuff. But at the end of it, on the presentation, it was brilliant. They just brought up on the screen where they're doing the presentation a picture of Gini Wijnaldum and Moussa Sissoko playing against each other in the Champions League final, which was due to happen later on that summer, and saying, look, we understand that we're just a stepping stone for you. And these are 2 players that came to Newcastle for relatively small money and have gone on to have big moves and, are playing in the Champions League final against each other. So,
let me just cut in there. I think you both made some really good and valid points about destination clubs, and obviously you can give us an insight from the agent side as to how players sometimes see clubs as a stepping stone. And there's a difference between someone being at a lower league club and seeing that as a stepping stone, i.e. someone like a Ben White initially, who would have gone on loan to Leeds, then had a great season at Brighton, using that as a stepping stone and a platform to first of all get in the England squad, but then potentially sign for a club like Arsenal. However, I do disagree in respect to the fact that I think Man City at the moment, I think they could pretty much click their fingers and sign anyone they want. I'm not saying they'll go for Saka. I think that there's probably Grealish and a few others, and we'll touch on that in a minute going into it. But I think, and Man United as well, I do agree. I don't think Man United are as attractive now to go to, because again, when I was watching as a West Ham fan, people like Rio, Lampard and Joey Cole every year were linked with going to Man United. Now they might not be as a glamorous club, but I tell you what, I reckon most players would at a drop of a hat leave and go up and sign for Man United, just purely because of the stature of the club. I'm not saying Saka boy by all means. I'm sure Arsenal's very close to his heart. But I think with anybody, They have aspirations, and he wants to, I'm sure, be successful. But he's so young. I don't think it's something that, as an Arsenal fan, you need to worry about right now. But in the back of your mind, it's nice seeing youngsters coming through as long as you can keep them.
Absolutely, yeah. And we need to make sure that we match the level that Bukayo Saka's setting, because eventually, right now, he's buzzing to play for Arsenal. Eventually, he'll get used to that, and he'll be focusing on his own career and his own achievements. You guys are seeing that with Harry Kane right now. At one point, Harry Kane couldn't get a look in. I think he only actually got into the starting lineup with Tottenham because, was it Soldado or someone like that was misfiring or injured, and he kind of happened to get the chance and just took it.
Yeah, I mean, you touched upon the Manchester clubs, guys, a few minutes ago. They look like they mean business this summer, and I can't really see.
Do you really think Sancho's a statement signing for Manchester United?
We don't think Sancho and Rafa Varane are statement signings.
No, I don't think they're at that level. As an attacking force, I don't think they really need a Sancho that's going to make a difference.
I think they do. We might watch German football, right? No. But we don't know German football like the Germans. And the way they talk about Sancho is clearly a very special talent.
He is. But I think in the German leagues, you've got 4 decent teams. 4 or 5 decent teams. It's not the Premier League.
No,
every game is a difficult game.
I agree with that, but I think that's a big sign for Man United, considering they finished second and they didn't win the UEFA Europa League in the end.
Yeah.
I think to get Sancho ahead of City, Chelsea
not going for him.
No, I know they're not going for him, but still sign him at 21 years old.
Yeah.
No, he hasn't had the minutes that he probably should have got in the World Cup. But I think that's a great signing. I
agree. Look, I don't like Man United. I'm gutted that Sancho's gone. There's some transfers that when they happen, you think to yourself, oh, crap, I really wanted that to fall through. I remember when Chelsea signed Shevchenko. I thought football was over. I thought that's it. They're going to dominate. Luckily, it didn't work out. And Sancho,
I was like, what's going on?
But Sancho, for me, I think he's a fantastic footballer. I love Saka. I'm so happy Saka's starting, for England in the Euros. But if someone said to me, I'm going to sit you down, Mo, in front of Jadon Sancho, and I want you to put a case forward for Saka starting ahead of him, ahead of the Euros, I would have been like, God, I don't fancy you trying to explain to Sancho why Saka should start. Look at the season Sancho has had. He's been on fire. He's a special talent. I think it's a statement signing. And Glenn, I agree with you. Varane and Sancho, who would not take that? Out of us guys sitting here, who would not take that?
100%. I mean, but then you look at the other side of Manchester and you look at, they've lodged bids, pretty much formally lodged bids for Harry Kane and Jack Grealish.
Yeah,
that's a different level of signing to Sancho and Varane. They're a different level of signings. Them two players Man United are not in the conversation for Harry Kane. They're not in the conversation.
No, but that's only from the financial side. I think Harry Kane would go Man United if they were interested.
You think so?
I think he'd see that as an option.
He wants to go to Manchester City. He would only want to go to.
He just wants to win things, bottom line. But
and he's not really to go to Man United, is he?
But he's got more of a chance than at Tottenham.
Yeah,
but at the same time, I think you've got to remember this: Man City squad to add to that even is hard. Let's face it, they walked away with a title this year. And don't get me wrong, next year Liverpool are going to come back stronger. Chelsea are going to come back stronger. Spurs have got to start making noise. Arsenal have got to come back and be a bit stronger as well. So for City, they don't need to actually add to their squad. If they signed absolutely nobody, they would still have a fantastic squad going into the season. But City being City, they're going to do that. But I don't, whether it's Grealish or whether it's other people, I don't know, but it definitely is going to be exciting to see how the next few weeks go anyway.
Oh, no, I think you're bang on right about what you were saying about, I remember back to when Man United signed Tevez, and I didn't think they needed to sign Tevez at that stage. They had Rooney and Ronaldo that were absolutely smashing it, and then you think the world's going to crumble, which they as well. You look at that, and good historical sides when they probably seemingly don't need to.
Yeah,
that's that for me. But Mo, that was a great point on that, mate. But what's your hopes for this evening, Saturday night's game, England versus Ukraine? Let's touch upon it.
Look, England have to go through, man. We absolutely have to go through. The thing is, with England in the World Cup and the Euros now, that game against Germany was the best game England have played in these last two tournaments where there's been quite a feel-good feeling and that England done quite well. The reality of the World Cup was that we didn't really play a decent level of opposition until Belgium, and we lost against them twice. And we were carried away in the emotion of it. But that game against Germany, let's not just minimise it after the event because we won. Germany were good opposition. I did not expect England to beat them, and we did so fairly comfortably. I know there was obviously a couple of moments, but now England simply have to go through to the final. Otherwise, it's pointless. Absolutely pointless. Rather get knocked out by Germany than go and bottle it against some of the teams that we are going to face, hopefully on the run up to the final.
What was your thoughts from the Germany game, guys? I mean, did you have a nice evening? Put it like that.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I mean,
You can't remember.
no, look, yeah, Mo's touched on it, and everyone can turn around and say that the German side were a strong side and whatever.
That Muller chant changes everything.
It does, but ultimately you still have to go out there and be a strong German side. And for 70 minutes, it was toe for toe. But when the breaking through come, it was, in my opinion, it was Grealish made a massive change for that as well. And I think individually there are some really good performances. But you're right, if we don't beat Ukraine tonight, then it's a complete and utter waste of an evening because I got very merry on it. But just on that, and only because we mentioned Saka, I've got a feeling he's not going to start him tonight. I've got a feeling he's going to go with Grealish from the off.
Like we said previously, Mo, I don't know whether you agree with this, mate. What we were saying was Harry Kane's used to playing with players that fly off of him. So players that can go ahead of him and quick players, which is why I think Saka suits that perfectly. I don't see a point of playing Foden and Grealish on the left and right. They're not going to bomb past him. They're not going to bomb past him. They're there to thread balls through. Harry Kane drops deep. There's no one in front. You've got Saka bombing on. You've got Sterling who
Mate, it's about time people put respect on Raheem Sterling's name, mate. Right, his goals have carried that team. He's doing really well. I think Jack's done very well when he's come on and made a difference. But that's perfect for him to come on in the 60th minute and let Saka run them down earlier on. I wouldn't mind him going with that same team that he started against Germany. Maybe move to a back four. Maybe back move.
You don't need three at the back.
Take Trippier out. Because I think I was right the other day, didn't I? When we predicted the teams, and we said he'll go at three at the back, play Walker as a right centre back.
Yep.
That worked perfectly in the Germany game. But this game, you've got to adapt to your opposition. Against Ukraine, I see Trippier coming out, Walker going back to right back, Stones and Maguire back in the middle.
How good was he, by the way?
Mate, Maguire
for me, he's clearly a good player, but he changed my opinion massively.
But if he didn't move for the money he moved to Man United for, he wouldn't get as criticised as much as he would,
Yeah, maybe. But he's always playing with, he's having his Lindelof or whatever.
Yeah, Lindelof is another £50 million player, £40 million player, but he's a good player, man.
The other night, he really changed my opinion on him as well. But, just going back to this game, I think whatever he does do, it has to be a win. There's no doubt.
Kane will score. I think
he needed that goal, and I hope that for his sake, it just gives him a little bit of a kick and he can push on.
The worry for me is like what happens with a lot of sort of big moments and wins. It wasn't one of the pinnacle moments, yet there was such euphoria. The fear is that now, because we've been so high, that this is a bit of a given.
No, but that's why I think having Southgate as manager is perfect. Because he won't allow them to.
None of that. I think this group of players are a little bit different. They're young. They're hungry. No one's really been.
The captain said, isn't it? The captain said after the game interview, it was brilliant. He got all emotional while looking at it, listening to it, and he goes, "We've done nothing yet.
Yeah.
We've done nothing." That's what he kept on saying. We need to win to make this tournament count. So,
Mo, how do you think we should go about this? Because there is 4 players that quite notable players that are all on bookings at the minute. You've got Calvin Phillips, you've got Harry Maguire, you've got Declan Rice and Phil Foden that are all currently on yellows. Now, would you look to potentially rest a couple of these players just in case? Because I don't think you can do without in a semi-final without Calvin Phillips, Maguire, Rice, and Foden. What would be your thoughts on that?
I think you have to play the team that you think is your best team and your preferred team. To make changes to avoid bookings, I don't think is the right mentality. That, to me, shows a lack of trust in your squad as well. Yeah. So he's picked players. You have to obviously say to the players on yellow cards, just be careful. You have to take a yellow for the team. You have to. That's part of tournament football. But be careful. Don't let it change the way you play, but just be mindful of that. In terms of even little things like late in the game, don't be the one to time waste. You don't be the one to stand in front of the ball when the opposition is taking a free kick. You don't be the one to argue with the ref. Let's just get the basics right first to minimise that chance. Be sensible. But you have to play the team that you want to play. And then if someone does get suspended, that's when you say, listen, that's why you're here, because we've got faith in you as a player, and then you have to adapt to that. So I would, if I was Gareth Southgate, just play the team that I want to play. And, when it comes to talking about whether Grealish and that sort of player should play, I mean, what a great problem to have. Because you're talking about, can Jack Grealish play well with Harry Kane? I mean, these are two very, very good players, right? So, England have got every single chance. I don't know about you boys, though. I still don't expect England to win it. We're still going to come up against the top team in the final. So right now, I'm saying it's not coming home. What about you three?
Oh, mate, no, it's coming home. It's definitely coming home. I mean, I don't know if I'll be going home, but it's going to be a tough game. It's the cup final, regardless. We've all seen, underdogs come on top in that respect, which we'll touch on. But I think if we get through this game here and we go into the semis, and just in regards to what you said, there's no point us taking care of the yellow card situation now because we've still got a semi-final to play and potentially a final. Yeah. So why not go 3-0 up and then make the changes? That would be my opinion on it. Let's go out there. Let's absolutely go 2, 3, 4 goals ahead, whatever. I'm not saying it's going to be that easy, but I'm saying let's go with the mentality that we're going to win this game. Then you can start taking off a couple of players that are on a bit of a risk.
I think what we all need to take into account is Ukraine against Sweden was really like the walking wounded by the end of the game. There's so many players that went off with injuries and
they played an extra half hour.
Yeah, they played the extra half an hour. And I think that's really going to have a big effect on what they're able to do on later on tonight in the game, I think that's going to make a big difference. And I think what's going to make a difference also is what's been a massive shit show of all this quarantining. I personally know about 8 of my friends that had tickets for this game in Rome tonight, and they haven't been able to go because they were told they will not be let into that stadium because they can't prove they've been quarantined for 5 days in Rome. Yeah. And, and that is, it's taking the biscuit a little bit.
Did you see, though, from the Scotland game that there was 1,600 people that have been classified as contracting COVID from that one game? So, I mean, they are right to be looking at it, obviously. But
again, I'll find out later on today. I'm getting my tickets for Tuesday. I've definitely got a ticket for Tuesday. I'm going to that semi-final game. Hopefully be able to go to the one on Wednesday as well. Let's see. But they're now saying they want to do what we done when we went to the cup final against City and get a COVID test before we go to the match. But now they don't want us to do it the day before. They want us to do it within 3 hours of getting to the stadium. Again, I don't know how this happens.
The point with this I don't get, Mo, and I don't know how your thoughts overall. The points I don't get is transport down there, vetting on what transport you get on or anything like that. So if you've had your COVID test 3 hours before, then you get on a train full of people in sort of vetting or anything, and then you go to a pub full of like these box parks and things like that.
Yeah, sorry, I just think I don't understand it. I'm still confused as to what happened with Billy Gilmore. Got COVID, and then Chilwell and Mount had to isolate, but no Scottish players had to isolate. I don't understand it. To me, it feels like they're making the rules up as they go along. You should be able to at least kind of come up with some logic as to why certain things are done. But as you say, you have to do a test, but then you're on a full train, you're in a full pub. I don't get it. I just don't get it.
No, we're socially distancing. I mean, to be fair, that is something that's been missing, isn't it? And what we won't have maybe as much in Rome this evening. But another bit of footage that sort of caught my eye, Mo, was from Berlin. I think they were socially distanced from the German fans after that. So, but predictions, mate. What's your prediction for England Ukraine? What's your thoughts?
2-0 England.
3?
I go 3-1.
3-1. You think we'll concede?
I reckon so.
3-0 for me. Yeah, no, I think it's going to be a tight game. There's no doubt about it. But at the same time, I think we get 1 goal. With the way that we play, they're going to have to bomb forward, commit players, and I think we'll nick them, especially people like Sterling, who's been fantastic, as mentioned. So, yeah.
Do we think this could be a tournament of underdogs? In terms of, like, you have it with the Euros. There's history with the Euros. You have Greece in 2004, who were dramatic underdogs.
Beating Portugal in Portugal,
yeah, finally, yeah, Denmark.
You have Denmark in 1992.
I remember that.
The Schmeichel, Brian Laudrup.
Yeah,
those were the teams. Do we think that this could potentially be that sort of summer? You look at the France result, Mo. The France result was, I mean, that Swiss team.
If England come against whoever they're going to come against in the final, be that be Belgium, be that be Spain, be that be...
Listen, could be Czech Republic.
Well, look, it's interesting,
but
right?
England are the under our free opponent.
Yeah, that group of death that everyone was scared of. Every single one of those teams is out now.
Everyone got kicked out of the tournament.
Yeah. So, yeah, you're right. It could be an underdog thing. But look, my prediction at the start of the tournament was Belgium. I just thought that, how you were talking earlier, Glenn, about the fact that...
Thierry Henry's the coach. It's only because Thierry Henry's gone back as a coach.
Well, he has improved Lukaku for sure. But no, honestly, I just thought it was Belgium's time. And Glenn, earlier you spoke about that mental dynamic of England coming off the back of the Germany game, that almost feeling like a final, and now having to play a lower profile game that, because it's further along the tournament, is more important, but it might not feel like that. And there's this mental dynamic that I thought would affect France this time round, where there's so much expectation. You look at their team, there's not a weakness. World champions, and everyone just looks at them and think, oh yeah, they'll breeze it. And I thought, yeah, well, how are they going to deal with that pressure? So I think obviously it didn't allow them to flourish how everyone expected. Belgium aren't dealing with that pressure. It's a case of, trying to live up to that golden generation sort of tag. But I don't get the impression that you don't see what we saw with England when we had our golden generation. You saw that actually restrict the players on the pitch. Belgium, to me, play with quite a lot of freedom and expression, and I think they're going to win the tournament.
Mo, saying that, do you not think they've potentially lost Eden Hazard and Kevin De Bruyne for tonight's game?
I think this is Belgium's last chance. I think this is their last chance as a group. If you have a look at the group that they had 2 to 4 years ago that were coming up to their prime, I think you've got De Bruyne, Lukaku in their prime currently, and it seems to be the rest of them, as in their defence. Courtois is still a very, very good goalkeeper.
He's been good for years.
But you look at Vertonghen, Oliveira,
the old back four.
This is last chance alone for that team to actually do something, I think.
On paper, or as a group of players in generation, because they've been on form for so long, as individuals, I think, like you, Mo, I was thinking Belgium could be the one. But now looking at it, with the game against Italy, and I don't think Italy were at their best in their last game, but it's going to be a real tough game. So I think because we're on that side of the draw, I think it's going to favour us.
But ultimately,
still going for England. Come on!
Yeah, look, that I think the winner of the tournament comes out of the Belgium game.
Anyway.
and I think it'll be Belgium. Ultimately, we can talk about the right side of the draw, but people forget that draw meets in the middle in the final. So you're taking the best team, or the form team from the opposite side of the draw anyway. And I just think, if we're talking about England winning it, I hope we play Italy, because then it's the battle of the defences. And I think that England have proven that we've got a really good knack of keeping clean sheets in this tournament, and Italy aren't as dynamic going forward as Belgium are. And I think we fare better against Italy than Belgium, in my opinion.
I don't know about that. I don't know.
Italy have scored 3 goals in two. They scored 3-0 against Turkey.
Roberto Mancini has got them singing, mate.
I've never known, Mo, anyone love someone more than Free loves Mancini. I have ever known him. But what's the fascination with Mancini?
We're working, mate.
That's why.
There you go.
And that we'll speak about that in a little while when we talk about Paratici and Tottenham, and we'll get onto that in a little while. Look, I think that obviously everyone's watching the show on Saturday morning thinking, why are they talking about Belgium or Italy? But obviously we recorded this the day before. Look, let's move on to Denmark doing as well as they are, mate, after what happened with Ericsson, and that's just brought everyone together, hasn't it? And those shocking scenes has brought like football fans, just the football family all together. Arsenal, Tottenham. Everyone was praying for Christian Eriksen to recover, and it was such good news that within a few hours, he was very able to release pictures and say that I'm getting better, and he's been releasing statements through his Instagram and stuff like that. But I think that's really galvanised that Denmark team and the way they've been playing, mate. They beat. Who did they beat 4-0? They smashed it.
If there was a story written, if this was storyboarded, you would have Denmark win it as that good feel good moment, wouldn't you? Really, but let's hope it's not. Let's hope it's England. For your sins, as an Arsenal fan, what are your thoughts on Nuno being the new Tottenham manager, mate? I thought we'd touch upon this.
And look at me and Mo laughing. We're both grinning, thinking.
Laughing, Karen, laughing.
Look.
Big club, Spurs. Big signing.
The thing is, what I would say, I do not understand for the life of me what goes through the head of Daniel Levy and the other decision makers at Tottenham. Look at how inconsistent your approach has been to managerial recruitment, going from Pochettino, who was fantastic, I think brilliant manager, getting rid of him for a serial winner who's actually not a serial winner anymore in Jose Mourinho, to now going for Nuno, who's achieved no success in terms of being a winner in English football, but has done very well for Wolves, which is a completely different kettle of fish to Tottenham.
Mo, I'm gonna take you back on that statement you just made. You're saying Pochettino's this fantastic guy, who he definitely is, and we talk about they use the word Tottenham DNA a lot. They talk about Tottenham DNA. What is Tottenham DNA, mate? Tottenham DNA for what? From the 60s and 70s? That is not really the DNA. For me, the DNA is what Pochettino has laid down over the last 6-7 years, that to passionate, fighting for it, pressing high up the pitch, and that's what they were looking for. They sacked what the Tottenham DNA was, and why I took back what he said is Pochettino was no different to Nuno when we appointed him.
I get that. I get that.
How was he any different?
No, he wasn't. But what Mo was trying to say was, how can you go from getting rid of someone
I can explain
after that to then going to Mourinho, not achieving what you need to, and then going backwards
Tottenham have always done that, though. Tottenham, going back to Jack Santini, we waited the whole season to appoint Jack Santini as our manager, and he was our first choice. That failed, and the guy that done well with us was his backup, Martin Yo. Same thing happened with Juande Ramos. Juande Ramos was meant to be our first choice after Martin Yo. He failed. Our backup was Harry Redknapp, that done well. You go strip it back off.
So who's Nuno's backup there?
Well, let me finish. AVB was the first choice then. Again, he messed up, and then they had to bring in Pochettino as his backup. Yeah,
I can see it now. Ryan Mason in January. I can see it.
No. You've got Jose Mourinho, which was Daniel Levy's first choice and was meant to bring the success to the club, and he hasn't done well. And Nuno's come in as his backup. So hopefully that will follow suit and he'll do really well.
But
Mate,
look, I'm talking about a consistency of thought and a consistency of approach. When you asked me about Arteta earlier, I said that for me, that above all is a proven winner. That's very important to me. When you get to the business end of a season, it takes. Not all managers can deal with that. Some of them, their wires come a bit loose in that pressure environment. So I want someone that has proven they can manage it. Now, if I'm recruiting a manager, I'm going to have certain criteria that are going to be present in all of my candidates. When I look at Tottenham, I see no consistency of thought. I don't understand what Tottenham are trying to do. And frankly, I think it was, I'm not trying to say this in like a tribal manner or a rival manner, but I think it was quite laughable, the amount of managerial names that were, spoken about and apparently rejected Tottenham. That sort of stuff should be kept in-house. It doesn't fill me with confidence if I was a Tottenham fan that this has been like a well-considered, well-thought-out process. And all I can say as an Arsenal fan, and Turk, maybe you as a West Ham fan, how do we feel about the appointment? I'm happy. Nuno at Tottenham, go for it. Off the back of his worst season.
I want you to be honest with your answer here. Do you think Nuno will keep Spurs up?
Can Nuno keep Spurs up?
The tension in this room right now is brilliant. I'm happy with it. I think Nuno's a good signing for a mediocre club.
Okay, yeah. Mate, you can
I was delighted. Just put it this way. I was over the moon when you chose Mourinho over Pochettino. Since then, I have been very happy with everything Tottenham have done. And this is from a rival point of view. And I think that does tell a story.
The problem being, Mo, is everyone forgets Pochettino's last 18 months. Everyone thinks Pochettino, amazing, lovely. Pochettino's last 18 months, I think we won 4 games away.
It was a bit of a Champions League.
It was before that. We got to the the final of the Champions League, didn't win it. That team in the end was not playing for him. That team wasn't playing for him. He wasn't playing for the team in the end. He was in interviews saying, it wasn't all singing or dancing, Pochettino. Something that had to happen.
No.
Like
because he never got back.
And you can't just keep flogging that. You wouldn't just be Pochettino, you stayed there.
Because he wasn't backed.
But you're right, Mo. This isn't exactly instilling confidence when you've gone to Conte, Fonseca, you've gone to apparently Graham Potter now, you've gone to Gattuso, you've gone to... We thought we'd leave it with a bit of a funny clip today, guys, with one of our England standout players.
You're an encyclopedia of football. Where does that come from?
A what?
An encyclopedia of football.
I don't know what that means.
That is so funny.
It's a good job you did football.
Absolutely. You know what? I'd love to be there when Jack Grealish realizes why Wikipedia is called Wikipedia. I just want to see that penny drop on his face.
Well, that's a great final thought, guys. Mo, how do we get on and get in touch with you now, mate? You've got your own YouTube channel, haven't you? I've had a look.
I do, yeah. And, I have to say thank you. Anyone watching that subscribe, because the response has been incredible. Over 13,000 subscribers in about a month, and I've only put 3 videos out. And, I see other people working really, really hard, putting out great content, and they don't get supported to the extent that I have. So that really, to me, shows that a lot of people have been very kind and shown a lot of solidarity to me, especially after what's happened. So thank you to each and every one of them. Just type in Moh Haider on YouTube. My channel will come up, and I'm Arsenal Moh 8 on the socials.
Amazing.
Mo, thank you for coming on, mate.
No, thank you. I look forward to seeing you in the new season.
Up the Spurs.
Yeah. I'm not looking forward to it, but we'll see what happens.
All the best, Mo. Thank you very much, mate. Guys, have a great weekend. Come on, England.